Hey everyone, so Bungie has officially revealed their next DLC for Destiny 2, The Edge of Fate. They revealed that it launches on July 15th. First expansion of the new saga. The new saga is called the Fate Saga, and it's the start of the Year of Prophecy, as they've dubbed it. With Edge of Fate, we'll see the start of our new release pattern for Destiny 2. We've seen the usual expansion, and then 4 seasons after that, and then we got our little test with the episodes, which I don't think landed as well as seasons did. Kind of just felt like elongated seasons. The new release model seems still a little bit seasonal. We've got the big expansion drop with a rewards pass, a major update with another rewards pass, then another big expansion with a rewards pass, and then the final major update of the year with another rewards pass. Each of the major updates look like they take place about halfway through each release cycle for these expansions. First major update is the Ash and Iron update. They didn't talk too much about what the major updates have outside of what's listed in the graphic here. So, new activities, new meta, events, modifiers, whole, seasonal refresh as we're used to outside of a new story. They did tease that the Plaguelands will be coming back for whatever's going on in Ash and Iron, as well as some of the new events that they're working on, like we have the heavy metal event coming here in a couple days. They mentioned one called Arms Week, which is focused around a certain weapon type, bringing new mods for that weapon type and certain buffs for that weapon type, but just during that week. They did talk about how events will be changing a little bit. They're taking a little pass around events to freshen them up a little bit so they're not the same thing we've been used to. I know myself, I've not been interested in Guardian games the last couple times, or even Solstice the last couple times. We'll see if the new Solstice that's coming up here will get a refresh, or if it's still going to be the same old thing, and we'll have to wait till next July for the new Solstice. They did at least talk about how all events are going to have their own holofoils to chase, usually their own weapon. The heavy metal event that's coming up in a couple days, they did mention the new item that they're adding for it is a sparrow with guns, so that'll be an interesting refresh for sparrows since we just got skimmers. Following the Ash and Iron update in December, we've got the Renegades release. They didn't show a whole lot, just a 30-second teaser, if that. They did talk about how it's paying homage to Star Wars. Later in that year's or half year / season, we're getting the Shadow and Order major update. They didn't talk about that at all outside of, it's out on March 3rd. And that's it for, the broad overview of what's coming. The expansions are paid as usual, but then the major updates that we'll be getting are free for everybody. It does look like the only paid parts of the major updates will be the rewards passes, which isn't surprising. Sounds like the rewards passes are just the season passes we're used to. Next up, Edge of Fate's kicking off our new saga. We're going to a new planetoid. The planetoid is Kepler, which, if you saw any of the ARGs, we were kind of aware of that to begin with. With Kepler, we've got a lot of, they said it's very puzzle-based location, a lot like the dungeon activities or exotic mission activities. They did mention the Kepler destination will have some destination abilities. They did show a little bit of gameplay of the Matter Spark ability. The Matter Spark ability turned into a little lightning ball. You can travel around faster, fit into smaller gaps than you would be able to as a normal Guardian, and you can, kind of do some damage to enemies. They touched on the relocator cannon a little bit. I think there's a small snippet of a Guardian using the relocator cannon to shoot something that's kind of around a corner that you wouldn't be able to reach normally. And then they showed a lot of the Matter Morph ability with the Guardian throwing some strand energy at some walkways and reconfiguring them to make a bridge somewhere. that they would then later traverse using Matterspark. Next up is the quality of life changes that they're making to the main screen, the portal to click on and open up. It's broken down into essentially our latest expansion, the tower, and then they've got some quick launch things here. They really focused on these 4 tabs. We've got the solo ops, which they went a little in depth with. It's a quick 10-minute mission that is everything solo, no matchmaking. They did say you can finally do strikes solo, which is great, so you're not having to fight over kills for the Pathfinder missions and whatnot. They mentioned about how you can change the difficulty and raise your rewards. They mentioned that there are 50 new modifiers in addition to the modifiers that are already in-game. Fireteam ops sounds pretty much just like solo ops, but with matchmaking. Quick missions, nothing super hard unless you want to raise the difficulty artificially. Pinnacle ops, they said things like the exotic missions fall into that. I would assume maybe Nightfalls also fall into it, and maybe even dungeons, unless dungeons are their own separate thing with raids. They didn't mention anything about raids and dungeons, really. And then Crucible ops, which is just Crucible. They did mention the new progression system. They're allowing you to fully level up your power and everything in Crucible if you only want to play Crucible. I'm interested to see where Gambit is, if it falls into Fireteam Ops or if it falls into Crucible. Quick look at the solo ops one. You know, different difficulties there. These look like just patrol zones. I don't know if they're placeholders or whatnot. Next up, we've got updates to gear. They're introducing the Armor 3.0 system. That Armor 3.0 system will be adding the gear tiers to armor, as well as set bonuses for armor. I'm interested to see if they'll be updating all armor to have set bonuses, if it's only going to be any armor that drops in the game, or if it's only the new expansion armor and that's it. They did say they're reworking the stats a little bit, so as we can see here, there's now a weapon stat, a health stat, and 100 is no longer the max a stat can go, 200 is the max. And they didn't mention the weapon stat will just increase weapon damage in general. Weapons are also getting the tier treatment, but it looks like, you know, we've got a tier 5 weapon here. All of its perks are enhanced, including its origin trait. And it's got 3 perks in that 3rd and 4th column there, as well as an enhanced mod on top of that. So the tier 5 weapons certainly seem like something you'd want to chase. The final bit here, they teased that the tower is getting a shooting range. So we'll be able to take those new tier 5 weapons and tier 5 gear and actually be able to test out what each buff does, how damage looks. It looks like they've got individual damage counters in front as well as overall damage, so you can go in with your full fire team. I'm interested to see if it includes, you know, let me throw a stationary Rolk here just to see what damage looks like for Vow of the Disciple. That pretty much wraps up all the new stuff. They did mention that Kepler, and I believe it's only Kepler, will have the new world tiers function, and based on how they described it, it sounds like how in like Division 2 the difficulty raises in just the free roam world as you get stronger. And they did mention as you go up in world tiers, better rewards. My own personal thoughts, Kepler looks pretty interesting. I like the design of the destination. It looks semi-familiar, semi-alien. Some of the other shots of it, they had the Fallen kit bashed look that we're used to from the Moon and the EDZ, and even some Vex stuff, since Vex and Fallen are the main enemies, it seems like, on Kepler. They teased some new units for both of them, as well as some changes to existing units. We saw Wretches from the Fallen with new strand spears rather than their plain spears. Looked like some more captains or a different enemy with stasis on them. And then a whole new flying Fallen enemy. As far as Vex, it looks like they just teased some new Seeker drones that are in a swarm, and they just kind of surround you. I don't know if they're exploders. The destination abilities, they look fun. I'm not crazy about the destination abilities since it's a new ability that's locked to just the destination. You know, it makes sense for raid encounters or stuff like that, but I don't know about just a planet having its own abilities that aren't present anywhere else in the game. The portal does, you know, look a lot streamlined. They said their main focus for the portal was getting players into the game faster, an easier onboarding area, which I think it'll accomplish that. But ultimately, I think the portal's going to accomplish what they're wanting of just getting people into activities faster rather than poking around trying to find where you're wanting to go. The gear changes, they sound like a good step towards what seems like is their ultimate goal of getting everybody back into grinding activities over and over and over again to get that best gear and make sure everybody is just playing as much as they can. You know, we've had a step towards that with the Nether being the first activity to drop adepts in addition to the shinies. You know I enjoyed a lot of grinding Nether over and over again to try to get an Adept Shiny. And I think the Tier 5s will probably accomplish that, especially if we're getting back to cycling out armor. I've been using the same armor since the 30th anniversary. I think the new armor changes will be nice to help us cycle out armor a little bit. Hopefully the set bonuses are actually worth it and not just kind of like, I'll ignore that, like how the Iron Banner set bonuses are right now, or some of the seasonal set bonuses. I've not cared for any of those. So hopefully these new set bonuses are actually something that can work with our builds from the looks of it. You know, after a final blow with any rocket or grenade launcher, sprint for a short time to gain a speed booster. You know, it's a minor thing, but it helps you be like, I might as well wear 2 of these pieces if I'm going to be using a rocket or a grenade launcher. The downside to having to grind out all the different tiers of armor and actually holding on to the armor means we're going to need more vault space. And I know I am quite full. I've not gone through and looked at good perks or not, but I'm at 600 of 700 just because I'm holding on to all of these new weapons, trying to decide what I like and what I don't like. And that kind of thing. I mean, all the ergo sums, I'm trying to keep one of every possible role, which is insane. But I'm doing the same with the class items too. Those are my thoughts on the armor. The weapon tiers, I'm interested to see if the weapon tiers are going to really like make or break a damage phase. Like, do we keep failing a damage phase in this raid because so-and-so, he's only using tier 2 weapons while everybody else is rolling with tier 5 weapons? Or does someone keep dying because they have tier 1 armor while everyone else is rolling tier 3, 4, 5, and so they're getting the bonus health or whatnot? I'm excited to see where Destiny is going. You know, I do have a few reservations about some of the changes, but I think that ultimately we're going in a step in the right direction. You know, maybe the slower release schedule will allow them to put more time into these expansions. They mentioned the expansions are a little bit larger than Rise of Iron, which for me isn't a great point of reference since I didn't play Rise of Iron. Played Taken King and then didn't really touch Destiny again until Destiny 2 released. So if it's, you know, similar to Warmind or that, I think that's a good point of reference for me. If they're similar to Warmind, I think I'll be happy, especially if we're getting 2 of those a year. That's it for the video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe.